All right, everybody, good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. I went ahead and just brought myself up immediately because for some reason my vmix is acting up. I have to put it over here to my left hand side because if I drag it to my usual spot, it kind of translates over. It'll plaster itself on multiple pages and then I can't see my actual graphics. So let's go ahead and get us started over on News 6 Plus. Good morning, folks, over on the News 6 YouTube channel as well as on the News 6 Plus app. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is digital meteorologist David Nazario here in the Digital Weather Center, and we're going to be tracking a bit of a roller coaster type scenario once again. And to tell you the truth, this time it doesn't necessarily dabble so much with temperatures. It has to do with, I guess you could say, fluctuations in the types of air masses that we're in, our on and off rain chances, as well as the potential for some severe weather on the northern side of Florida, particularly the Florida Panhandle. But as we go into this weekend with the Xfinity race that I'll be at on Saturday, and then the Great American Race, the Daytona 500, scheduled for Sunday, there could be some impediments brought on by Mother Nature. So we'll go ahead and rock right into that and get things kicked off. See, I'm not even used to, I'm looking over here and I'm not used to this interface, but we're going to rock through regardless. So here is a look at your live water vapor satellite shot. I'll go ahead and play the loops too, so we can kind of get a feel for what's happening. We still have that west to east jet flow moving across the central portions of the United States. That's key for what's going to be coming next. And then if you look down across us, surprisingly, even though we still have a lot of fog out there in the mix, we do have a lot of good mid to upper level dry air. And I know that seems like a bit of a conundrum there. You're probably thinking, well, if there's dry air overhead, why do we still have clouds? And why especially is there still fog out there? Well, the reason being is we're still underneath high pressure. And as a result, we'll still get what are called overnight inversions, trapping a lot of that humidity and that mugginess that we can feel day to day, whether it be any time of the day, down closest to ground level. And as a result, as it gets sandwiched down towards the ground, coupled with, the difference in temperatures between the peninsula of Florida and the oceans on either side, that's what creates the condensation that then forms our fog. This morning, it was very dense up to our northwestern viewing counties. I noticed that some areas had visibility all the way down to 0 statute miles. You could only see maybe 100, 200 yards out in front of your face, whether you be standing outside, driving in it, regardless. That has since burnt off, and now we're continuing to see some of this dry air trying to funnel in, but to our northwest over the Rockies, the Four Corners states, and then into the Central Plains, that is where our next couple, I should say next several storm systems are going to be moving in. But for now, let's take a look at the temperatures outside. You can see we are already rocketing up into the 80s. A lot of us already feel like we're in the 80s, if not right on that threshold. Gainesville and Ocala still fairly cold out. And I say cold because it's pushing noon and we're still in the low 60s. And that's a result of that fog and the now low-lying stratus that we have out there, or low-hanging stratus, I should say, that's still hanging out up there in our northwestern viewing counties. But down here in Orlando, it feels like 79 outside. It feels like 81 in Kissimmee already. And this is going to be the song and dance over the next few days. I'll take you through our latest heat index here so you can get a feel for what's coming. So max heating of the day, the warmest part of the afternoon, we're going to be topping out in the low to mid 80s across much of the peninsula. Great beach weather, truthfully. This has been the rhythmic pattern we followed since last week. And now rolling into this week, if you notice, a pretty decent temperature gradient between, say, Seminole County, parts of western Volusia County, Orange, and Osceola County, in comparison to the eastern coastline of Volusia, Flagler County, and Brevard County. Notice that it feels like temperature difference of about 10 degrees on either side. So the sun is still beaming. You'll still get a nice little tan going if you were to take advantage of some outdoor activities, especially if you live along the coast. But it'll definitely feel a lot better with that easterly onshore flow helping to keep temperatures on the mild side versus us trying to cook off here in central Florida. We go through the day on Tuesday, much of the same as you can see. kind of still hanging tough in terms of that consistent temperature range. And then Wednesday and especially Thursday is where things start to get a little more interesting. You can see now the feel-like temperatures, the heat index will be up to 85 in Sanford, 85 in Orlando. Even Gainesville, Ocala, the Villages are not dodging this bullet this time. We're sitting in the mid-80s during the warmest part of the afternoon tomorrow. And then this is where we might try to touch that 90-degree threshold. If you look on the day Thursday, between 2 to 3 p.m., and I'll even take you full screen so you can get a feel for that. If you look, Orlando right there, flirting with that 90-degree temperature line. Sanford, 88 degrees. Kissimmee, 87 degrees. 85 out in Melbourne, 87 in Leesburg, and 87 in the Villages. And now, I will admit, because of that dry air hanging out in the mid to upper levels, the heat index is only going to be able to come up so much, but your ambient air temperatures, or just your general air temperatures outside, regardless of where you are going to pretty much match these numbers. The heat index may be a little bit higher, especially up towards our northern viewing counties. But for example, the Four Corners counties, Lake, Osceola, Polk, and Orange, those are where we are going to come close. The GFS, the meteogram from the GFS does have us topping out at 90 degrees on Thursday afternoon. So it's going to be very interesting, and that's part of the roller coaster that I've been alluding to. Switching on over, I know this has been a hot topic, especially for me. You can probably hear it in my voice still. I'm still dealing with allergies. I got fairly congested Thursday and Friday of last week. That's why, unfortunately, I was not here in the Digital Weather Center amongst other personal emergencies, to tell you the truth, that were going on. I'm not going to elaborate too much on that for the sake of time. We're still under a moderate air quality out there, and I'd argue this is maybe a little undersold, because I've noticed, especially in Polk, Orange, and Osceola, we have a lot of construction fires burning, just agricultural fires. Like, we're burning old wildlife, or burning old what's the word I'm looking for? We're burning old forest materials. We're burning old trees, shrubs, and other different pieces of vegetation just to make way for all the homes that are going up, especially in Polk County. So I would argue in certain isolated bouts, we have unhealthy air quality conditions. And then don't even get us started on the pollen forecast. You can see for the days ahead, regardless, because of how hot it is, spring is almost in full effect at this point. We're going to continue to see the pollen stay very, very elevated. We just washed our vehicles yesterday and the day before, and I've been detailing them regularly, and they are already coated. I'm talking thick, juicy blobs of that yellow pollen, which is just uncalled for. You know, Florida, you need to calm down a little bit. This here, I noticed that Melissa Riley in the News 6 chat asked about cooler weather. This is, you could kind of say, good news. Unfortunately, not too much, because it's not like we're expecting another cool down anytime soon. We will have a front coming through, a fairly powerful one coming through by Sunday, early half of the day, and that's going to drop us from the mid to upper 80s back down into the upper 70s. So, you know, we're getting closer to average. If you notice here, according to CPC, Climate Prediction Center, to our north, we'll start to slowly ebb and flow back into those below average temperatures. Orlando, Tampa, our viewing area generally in Central Florida, we're going to be right at about average, hovering around that 75, we'll say, on average temperature, kind of up or down from that mean threshold, if you will. And then this has just started to open up over the last couple days. I've been tracking this on my personal social medias. We now have severe weather forecast for our neighbors up towards the northwest in parts of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. And the reason I bring this up is I'm going to switch us over to Storm Prediction Center's website, and I'll take us to day 6. Here you go. We'll merge it on over. I know this is a bit of a weird view because CPC's their website is left side biased. But if you look, we have a 15% highlight designation for the Florida Panhandle, the western periphery of Georgia, and then through Dixie Alley or the Deep South, the Gulf Coast states. The reason I bring this up is this is the same front that's going to influence our weather on both Saturday and especially Sunday. If I have any NASCAR fans out there or anybody who's just going to extend their Valentine's Day shenanigans into the weekend, we're going to have to watch this closely, especially if you have friends, relatives, or you're going to be traveling up and out of Central Florida up towards the Panhandle or the Southeast for whatever reason. You know, we all have our plans. We have to watch because this does indicate severe weather outbreak potential, and that's the reason I'm briefing you all this. Usually, when Storm Prediction Center pulls something out like a 15% on days 5, 6, 7, or 8, that far out, confidence is fairly high. We're probably going to end up with a level 2, if not a level 3, or even higher designation as this gets closer to that 48 to 72 hour threshold. And based on a lot of the model data, I would anticipate this is going to extend a bit further into Florida. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and get into that now. This is a look at our upper air pattern right here. Let me turn the windshield back on so you can see what it is that we're looking at. And I'm going to quickly breeze through this very fast before we take our first break, just to set the stage. So there's that zonal flow. We're still west to east across the United States, but here comes our first big trough, extending down through the Rockies and ejecting out over the central southern plains. And notice it doesn't take on a heck of a lot of amplitude. And when I say something like that, it doesn't dig very far to the south. Notice that the base of the trough still lingers around Oklahoma, Texas, maybe the central plains, the front range of Colorado and northern New Mexico. It doesn't dive as far south as we've seen previous trough axes extending through Texas down into the Gulf, through the Gulf Coast states, and in us in Florida. That's not the case with the first one, but if I go just a bit further in time as we go through Friday, Valentine's Day, I have an article up on clickorlando.com discussing this right now. You go through Friday and then into Saturday. Now we have a much more amplified trough beginning to dig out of the four corners in the desert southwest, and this is what could potentially bring our severe weather activity for the southeast. There you have it. I have the entire area I'm thinking could see some strong thunderstorms highlighted in red. Now, when I say strong thunderstorms, I don't necessarily mean severe thunderstorms. There is a bit of a difference, and before we take our break, I'll kind of unfold that or unpack that a little bit. You can have strong storms that don't necessarily go severe. Severe weather criteria being winds in excess of 50 miles an hour, 1 inch or greater hail, and then, of course, the tornadic activity. Strong thunderstorms can still produce 35 to 40 mile an hour winds, capable of lofting small objects, doing a little bit of structural damage, or possibly making it difficult to commute on the roadway, especially if you mix that with heavy rainfall. You can still get dime, pea, or nickel-sized hail, penny-sized hail out there from these stronger thunderstorms. Those will typically drop a special weather statement. And then naturally, obviously, this would constitute severe weather, but in those strong thunderstorms, you can have a very, 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 I'm talking snap of the finger kind of a spin up in terms of funnel activity. A funnel cloud or a mesocyclone, something that'll create some stronger downrush winds that will then transition to that severe weather stage. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back. I'm going to take that quick 2-minute break, and then we'll delve into the timing on all this as we go through the back end of this week, what those temperatures are going to be doing, and then what Saturday and especially Sunday could look like for all of us here in Florida. So, folks, we will be right back. And we're back. All right. So the 12Z GFS, our early afternoon iteration of the American model, is populating right now. I'm going to forego that because since we are close enough in time now to where we can see these first couple of systems within the next 3 days, the next 5 to 6 days, and then shortly thereafter, I'm not going to pull up the third-party site to show you the latest data because I do not see us changing very much. And in fact, since I started tracking all this phenomena, I want to say between Tuesday and Wednesday of last week, the greatest adjustments we've seen in our model data is taking it up a couple notches in latitude or maybe back down towards the south. But in general, the thinking of this is where it'll form, this is what'll be hit hardest, this is where this and that will form and go off, that's been more or less the same. So this is where we sit right now, and I'll take us full screen so we can do a little bit of doodling as I track us through time. This is Monday as of now, 45 minutes ago per the GFS. And as we go forward just a hair, you can see there goes that next system right there, already kicking off. And this is by tomorrow at the lunch hour, 12 p.m. And one thing I want you to notice is there really isn't too much of a discernible area of low pressure. We have cold air kind of sinking in on the backside of it, and then lots of warm, moist air surging in from the Gulf and over the southeast United States, which is what's producing this large swath of rainfall. And then you obviously have the snow sector, is what I'll call it, where the freezing temperatures exist up over the lower Midwest states and the northern periphery of the mid-Atlantic, parts of Virginia, West Virginia, and further north from there. It looks like an area of low pressure is trying to get going somewhere right in through here, but the GFS is not too savvy with it. And you can see slowly but surely as we go through time, we get a lot more of that moist air influx, or just that introduction of moist air, creating another bout of possible thunderstorms moving through the southeast as we go through Wednesday and very early Thursday morning. Here we have another frontal band that gets a little hung up right along the Gulf coastline, through the Big Bend of Florida, and then off the southeast coast, right in through here. This is what I'm looking at right there, folks. You can still see that combative line of the warmer temps surging in from off the Atlantic and the eastern Gulf, and then all of our cold air trying to make it as far south as us. But this is why our temperatures are really not going to go anywhere. And in fact, Thursday is forecast to be our warmest day of the week because of this combative position that we're in. We have the cold air trying to bully the warmth out of the way, but that warm air is stubborn. Normally, cold wins the battle every step of the way, but in this case, that warm air is not going anywhere. We have dominating subtropical high pressure down there that's only going to further amplify the pattern just in time for this next feature. This is the big one. This is the one, folks. And you can see here, that's why Storm Prediction Center has that threat for severe weather as we get into the weekend. This whole area could go up in terms of thunderstorm coverage. And this is Saturday at 7 p.m. So if I have anybody out there watching who's going to be going to Daytona early for the Xfinity and the Truck Series race on Saturday, that's the one we're going to, we should be good to go. No risk for rain or any kind of increased cloud coverage. Laser Pat over on News 6. So I work in theme parks, most people's dream job. I wish I went to school for this. It's so fascinating. Laser Pat, well, thank you very much. I'm glad that you find the weather discussion fascinating. I hope it's not only the weather itself, because I attribute a lot of it to just the science behind all this, but I hope it's also the way that we're presenting it that makes it a little more interesting than as if you were sitting through a high school or a college lecture. I try to bring a little bit of that personality to the table as well. So that's what the GFS has in store for us. If I come over to the European model, the Euro is a bit more aggressive, to tell you the truth. So you can see the first storm system right there for today and into tomorrow kicks off. We have a large-scale area of heavier rainfall. Not looking too much at the threat for severe, but we can't rule out those moderate thunderstorms or just the garden variety thunderstorms with this first swath of elongated energy that gets to going from Texas, Oklahoma, and then through the rest of the southeastern half of the United States. And then if I quickly fast forward the clock, there you have it. You can see the same general setup that the GFS presented us with a couple moments ago, that stationary fragment there that's cutting us off from the rest of us who were to the north, getting some of that fresh, cooler air and relaxing from these spring/pseudo-summertime temperatures. All that's going to do is aggravate the pattern even more. You can see as we go through the day on Friday, maybe some spotty showers here in Central Florida. Saturday looking pretty good as the Gulf opens up. And then there it is. There's that big system looking a bit more aggressive here on the European model, and that's how far the 6Z iteration will go. For some reason, the 0Z doesn't quite want to load up. I don't know why. I tried to boot it up before starting this live stream, but you can see that's why on that upper air pattern chart, I had this entire area highlighted for thunderstorms, because you could see as far north as Kentucky, Tennessee, that's where that triple point and the extension of that cold boundary is going to be pushing through all that warmth and unstable air that's over the southeast quadrant of the U.S. So it's going to be a very interesting weekend, definitely. Things are going to kickstart for our friends too in the plains by Friday afternoon, their Valentine's Day evening, and then through Saturday and Sunday is when the main event is going to get going. So, with that being said, here is a precip outlook, the latest from Climate Prediction Center. You can see that for the next couple weeks, our precipitation is going to come up just a little bit, just a marginal nudge into that above average bracket, which is actually a good thing, because in a La Nina wintertime, we're used to seeing well below average. So for a traditional wintertime setup, you would see this blanketed with a shade of tan or brown or something like that, which is what we've been underneath for the last 2 to 3 weeks. As we go through the second half of February, because of this chain, this marathon montage, you can superimpose the Rocky theme in the background and kind of create a winter storm training montage for all these systems coming out of the Rockies. Our rain chances are going to keep going up and down, up and down. And that's where I say we're going to be in a bit of a roller coaster. It's going to be very warm, very muggy, extra warm and muggy, flirting with the records, and then the rains are going to come through. We'll have to watch for the thunderstorm chances. And the reason I say that is we'll have to treat this as almost a pseudo spring/summertime setup with the introduction of these polar fronts that keep coming down out of the Rockies, rapidly accelerating off to the east. So it's going to be a very interesting next 7 to 14 days, I would say. And then as we get ready to wrap up, here's a look at your pinpoint accurate forecast. You can see for the next 3 days, hugging the mid to low 80s before Wednesday, and especially Thursday, we rock it up with the introduction of that next storm system. And then Saturday, and especially Sunday, we might want to adjust Sunday a little bit. It shows that we have mostly clear skies with more of the partly cloudy skies on Saturday. I think we might need to flip-flop that. We'll do a little bit more investigating. I will be in for the evening show on Friday, so of course, naturally, I get to lead the charge into the weekend, giving you guys everything that you need to know, pinpointing what's going to be happening here in the state of Florida for your Friday evening weather information on the broadcast side of things. But there you have it, folks. That is your 7-day forecast, and we will get ready to wrap up. If there are no questions over on the News 6 YouTube channel, it does not look like it. So we will catch you here again, same time, same place tomorrow at 11:30. Tentatively, I have a really, really big interview scheduled tomorrow for my tropical aficionados out there. As you all know, since I started at News 6, everybody looks to me as the tropics guy. We were talking winter storms and cold fronts, and I still had some way, shape, or form to bring tropics into the equation. Well, tomorrow I'm going to be sitting down with Colorado State University's Dr. Phil Klotzbach, who is the subject matter expert and one of the hard chargers and top figureheads for your preseason and intraseasonal hurricane forecasts. So we'll be doing that interview starting at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. We will be streaming it here on News 6 YouTube and on News 6 Plus. So if we do not make it to the 11:30 weather update, you can best believe we will be streaming that live here on News 6 for your situational awareness. So I'm really excited for that. I have a lot of really good questions lined up to conversate with Dr. Phil and hopefully create a bit of rapport and carry that over to the National Hurricane Conference in April, where I will also be bringing you guys more tropical weather updates as those preseason forecasts begin to hit. So thank you all once again for taking some time out of your Monday morning. I hope your week is off to a high note. Starting off on a high note, I hope you had a pleasant weekend, a better one than I did. I will admit Saturday and especially Sunday, we definitely went back up into the positive direction, feeling a lot better, sorting things out in the background, and we are now back in business and we're rocking. So have a great rest of your day. We'll see you again tomorrow in one way, shape, or form, whether it be here for the Warning Weather Update or for the Dr. Phil Klotzbach interview. You can catch us here live over on News 6. But until then, this is the Digital Weather Center signing out.